Commander Vexara pressed all four of her arms against the command console as another explosion shook the station. The lights flickered and went red again. For 3 cycles, which meant about 2 Earth weeks, her station had been under attack. The enemy fleet outside was massive. 200 ships from the Zalathi hegemony surrounded Kepler Station like hungry wolves around wounded prey. Shield strength at 32%, reported her tactical officer. The young Altarian's voice shook with fear. Everyone knew what happened when shields failed completely. The station would break apart. 50,000 civilians would die in the cold vacuum of space. These were not soldiers but families who had run from their homes when the Zalathi invaded the border colonies. Vexara looked through the massive window of the command center. She could see the enemy ships clearly. They hung in space like metal predators, their purple energy weapons firing in perfect rhythm. The Zalathi always fought the same way. They used overwhelming numbers and patience. They would sit outside and fire their weapons until their enemies' shields failed. Then they would destroy everything. In 500 years, they had never lost a siege like this. The coalition had sent a message saying help was coming. But the nearest fleet was 3 weeks away. Vexara did the math in her head again, hoping for a different answer. The shields would fail in 6 days. Maybe 7 if they redirected all power from non-essential systems. The civilians in the lower sections were already living in near darkness to save power. "Commander, I'm scared," admitted Lieutenant Cora from her position at the sensor station. She was young, only on her 2nd assignment. Vexara wanted to comfort her, but what could she say? That everything would be fine? That would be a lie. Admiral Krextor sat in his command throne aboard the Zalathi flagship. His scaled skin rippled with satisfaction. Another easy victory was within reach. The coalition station was almost broken. He could see their shields flickering like a dying flame. Soon, very soon, they would fail completely. Then his fleet would turn the station into scattered atoms. How much longer? He asked his second in command. 6 rotations at current rate of fire, Admiral. Perhaps 7 if they continue reducing life support power. Krextor made a sound that served as laughter among his people. Let them suffocate slowly in the dark. It makes no difference. The outcome is certain. The Zalathi had built their entire military doctrine on this certainty. They studied their enemies carefully. They knew exactly how much punishment coalition shields could take. They knew the breaking point of every alloy used in coalition hull construction. War was mathematics to them, and they were very good at math. "Admiral," the sensor operator suddenly spoke up, "I'm detecting an anomaly." "What kind of anomaly?" Krextor's satisfaction dimmed slightly. He did not like surprises. "A ship is dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Configuration unknown." Krextor stood from his throne. Unknown? Every ship design in the galaxy was cataloged in their databases. The coalition had no secret vessels. He was sure of it. On Kepler Station, the same anomaly appeared on their sensors. Vexara stared at the readings in confusion. The ship was small, barely the size of a coalition cruiser. Its design was bizarre. Instead of the smooth, elegant lines that characterized most spacecraft, this vessel was blocky and angular. It looked like someone had welded rectangular metal boxes together and called it a ship. "What in the void is that?" Cora whispered. The unknown ship's hull was covered in what looked like primitive armor plating, actual metal plates like something from a historical museum. Who still used physical armor in space combat? Energy shields were far superior. The ship also bristled with what appeared to be physical weapon systems. Tubes and turrets covered its surface like spines on a dangerous animal. Then the communication channel opened. The universal translator struggled for a moment, then produced words in Coalition Standard. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiant. We received your distress signal. We're here to help. Suggest you buckle up. This is about to get interesting." Vexara felt her heart skip. 1 ship. The Coalition had sent 1 ship against 200. "Captain Chen," Vexara responded carefully, "we appreciate any assistance, but you should know you're facing a Zalathi siege fleet of 200 vessels. Perhaps you should wait for additional support." There was a pause, then the human captain responded. The translator conveyed something it tagged as amusement in her voice. 200? Well, that should make this fun. Don't worry, Commander. We've got this. Just keep your shields up a little longer. On the Zalathi flagship, Admiral Krextor studied the new arrival with disdain. His computers were already analyzing the primitive vessel. Fusion reactors instead of antimatter drives. Projectile weapons mixed with basic energy systems. a hull made of simple titanium steel composite. His tactical computer calculated the outcome of an engagement. The unknown ship would be destroyed in less than 10 minutes. "Who are these fools?" he asked. "Unknown species calling themselves humans, Admiral. No record in our databases. Send Squadron 7 to destroy them. I don't want any distractions from the siege." 12 Zalathi destroyers peeled away from the main fleet. Each one was a masterpiece of military engineering, armed with plasma cannons that could melt through most known alloys. Their shields could withstand direct hits from coalition battleship main guns. They moved in perfect formation toward the lone human ship. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the approaching destroyers with calm interest. Her crew of 150 humans sat at their stations with the same relaxed confidence. They had trained for this moment, though none of them had ever fought aliens before. Humanity had only discovered FTL travel 5 years ago. This was their first real test. 12 bogies incoming, Captain," her weapons officer reported. "They're charging weapons." "Well, we can't have that," Chen said with a smile. "Let's show them how humans say hello. All hands prepare for combat maneuvers. Time to dance." The crew grinned at their stations. They knew what that meant. On Kepler Station, Vexara watched her tactical display with growing dread. The 12 Zalathi destroyers would tear the human ship apart. She had seen it happen dozens of times. The Zalathi would surround their target, calculate perfect firing solutions, and unleash coordinated plasma fire that no ship could survive. The destroyers spread out in their standard attack pattern. Their movements were precise and predictable, like a mathematical equation being solved in space. They began charging their plasma cannons. In 30 seconds, they would all fire at once. The human ship started moving, but it wasn't moving like any ship Vexara had ever seen. Instead of taking a defensive position or trying to find optimal firing angles, the Defiant began spinning and rolling in ways that seemed random. It was like watching a fish swim through three-dimensional water, if the fish was made of metal and didn't care about logic. The Zalathi targeting computers struggled to track the movement. They were designed to predict logical flight paths based on millions of recorded battles. Every species in the galaxy fought in patterns that made sense. Ships moved to maintain stable firing platforms. They conserved fuel. They followed the rules of organized warfare. The humans apparently hadn't read those rules. The Defiant's engines fired in short, violent bursts, sending it tumbling in one direction, then suddenly stopping and going another way. It was chaos. It was insane. It was working. When the Zalathi plasma cannons finally fired, they hit empty space. The Defiant had already moved in a direction the targeting computers hadn't considered possible. No sane pilot would put those kinds of stress forces on their ship. The G-forces alone should have killed the crew. Then the human ship fired back. Kinetic railgun rounds, simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds, punched through space. The Zalathi shields, calibrated to stop energy weapons, offered almost no resistance to the physical projectiles. The rounds tore through the first destroyer's hull like paper. The ship vented atmosphere and crew into space before exploding in a brief flower of light. 2 more destroyers tried to adjust their tactics, but the human ship was already moving again, rolling and spinning in its chaotic dance. More railgun rounds flew out. Another destroyer split in half. Then another lost its engines and spun helplessly into the void. In less than 3 minutes, 3 Zalathi destroyers were gone. The remaining 9 broke formation and retreated, their captains unable to process what had just happened. On Kepler Station, there was complete silence. Then Lieutenant Cora spoke in a whisper that everyone heard clearly. They destroyed 3 Zalathi destroyers in minutes. 1 ship destroyed 3. Vexara stared at the tactical display, unable to fully process what she had witnessed. In 500 years of recorded combat, no single vessel had ever survived an encounter with even 1 Zalathi destroyer, let alone destroyed 3 while outnumbered 12 to 1. The communication channel crackled to life. Captain Chen's voice sounded slightly breathless but cheerful, like someone who had just finished a pleasant jog. "Sorry about the mess out there, Commander. These Zalathi folks need to learn some new tricks. Their attack patterns are way too predictable. Anyway, we're moving to engage the main fleet now. You might want to tell your people to watch this. They're about to see something." Admiral Krextor ordered his fleet into a new formation. 188 ships moved with perfect synchronization, forming a crescent moon shape in space. This was attack pattern Theta, designed to trap and overwhelm a single enemy vessel. No ship could escape from it. No ship could survive the concentrated fire from all angles. "Admiral, the human vessel is accelerating toward us," his sensor operator reported, confusion clear in his voice. "Toward us?" Krextor repeated. "They're attacking?" It made no sense. A single ship charging nearly 200? It was suicide. Yet the blocky human vessel kept coming, its engines burning bright blue against the darkness of space. Captain Sarah Chen stood relaxed on her bridge, sipping coffee from a magnetic mug. Her crew worked at their stations with the same calm energy. Nobody looked worried. If anything, they looked excited. "Captain, they're forming a crescent trap," her tactical officer, Lieutenant James Park, reported. "Classic encirclement maneuver." "Beautiful formation," Chen agreed. "Absolutely perfect spacing. Must have taken years to train that coordination." She set down her coffee. "Would be a real shame if someone messed it up." "Parks, load the special packages. Time to introduce these folks to human warfare." On Kepler Station, Commander Vexara watched the tactical display with her 4 hands clenched tight. The human ship was flying straight into death. She wanted to warn them, to tell them to run, but what was the point? There was nowhere to run. The Zalathi had them all trapped. "Commander, I'm reading strange energy signatures from the human ship," Cora reported. "Multiple small launches. They're deploying something." The Defiant released a cloud of small objects as it approached the Zalathi fleet. Each object was no bigger than a coffin, painted black to blend with space. They spread out in seemingly random directions, tumbling slowly through the void. Admiral Krextor studied the objects with contempt. "Debris? Are they dumping their garbage at us?" "Unknown, Admiral. The objects appear to be inert. No energy signatures, no weapons detected. Ignore them. All ships prepare to fire on my command." The Zalathi fleet's plasma cannons began to glow with purple energy. Nearly 200 weapons charging at once created a light show that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deadly. The human ship was now in optimal range. There was no escape. "Fire," Krextor commanded. Space lit up with purple death. Hundreds of plasma beams converged on the location where the Defiant should have been. But the human ship had already moved. At the last possible second, it had fired its engines at maximum power and shot upward relative to the galactic plane. The maneuver should have torn the ship apart. The G-forces should have turned the crew into paste. But the Defiant held together, and somehow its crew survived. The plasma beams passed through empty space and kept going. With horrifying realization, Krextor understood what was about to happen. His perfectly coordinated fleet was arranged in a crescent. Their weapons had all fired inward at the same target. Now those beams were heading straight for the ships on the opposite side of the formation. "Evasive maneuvers," he screamed, but it was too late. Zalathi ships were built for methodical combat, not quick dodging. Plasma beams meant for the human ships slammed into Zalathi shields. Most shields held, but several ships took damage from their own fleet's weapons. Confusion spread through the formation as captains tried to move their ships while avoiding collision with their neighbors. Then the small objects the Defiant had deployed earlier came to life. They were mines, but not like any mines the galaxy had seen before. Humans had learned warfare in their oceans and in their skies before they came to space. They knew about area denial, about psychological warfare, about making the enemy afraid to move. The mines activated with small thruster bursts, suddenly mobile and seeking targets. They didn't have sophisticated targeting systems. They didn't need them. They simply moved toward the nearest heat source and exploded. Nuclear explosions dotted the Zalathi formation. The blasts weren't enough to destroy the heavily shielded warships, but they were enough to blind sensors, overload shields, and create chaos. Ships began firing at the mines, which only made things worse. Plasma beams flying in all directions, mines detonating, ships trying to maintain formation while avoiding collisions. The perfect Zalathi formation dissolved into chaos. And through that chaos, the Defiant struck like a shark among confused fish. The human ship dove into the middle of the disorganized fleet, its railguns firing continuously. At such close range, the Zalathi ships couldn't use their main weapons without risking hitting each other. Their point defense systems, designed to stop the occasional missile, couldn't handle the volume of kinetic rounds the human ship was putting out. Captain Chen called out targets with an almost playful tone. "Take out that cruiser's engines. Pop those sensor arrays on the left." Oh, look at that battleship showing us its belly. How rude not to say hello. The Defiant rolled and spun through the Zalathi fleet, never staying still, never following a predictable path. Its crew seemed to treat the battle like a game. Over the ship's intercom, someone had started playing ancient Earth music. The driving beat of something called heavy metal echoed through the corridors. On his flagship, Admiral Krextor watched his tactical display in growing horror. 12 more ships were damaged or destroyed. His perfect fleet was in disarray. The human ship was everywhere and nowhere, impossible to target, impossible to trap. How? He demanded of his tactical officer. How are they doing this? The officer's scales had gone pale with fear. Admiral, their movement patterns. They're not patterns at all. They're random, chaotic. Our computers can't predict chaos. And their crew, the G-forces they're enduring should be lethal. No species can survive those forces. These humans can, apparently. Commander Vexara watched from Kepler Station with all 4 eyes wide. The mighty Zalathi fleet, the terror of the galaxy, was being picked apart by a single ship, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through pure chaotic aggression. Commander, I'm picking up a transmission from the human ship, Cora said. They're broadcasting on an open channel. The speakers came to life with Captain Chen's voice, still calm, almost amused. But underneath the casual tone was something else, something that made even Vexara's fur stand on end. It was the voice of a predator enjoying the hunt. Attention, Zalathi fleet. This is Captain Chen. I'm going to make this real simple for you. You can leave now or we can keep playing. But I should warn you, we've been holding back. We didn't want to scare the nice people on the station. But if you make us get serious, well, you won't like us when we're serious. Admiral Krextor's rage overcame his shock. Holding back? They claim to be holding back. All ships, reform. Pattern Delta 9. Box them in. Leave no escape route. The Zalathi fleet began to reform, but it was slower now. Ships were damaged, captains were frightened, and the chaos had shaken their confidence. Still, they outnumbered the human ship by more than 150 to 1. Surely those were odds no one could overcome. The Defiant had pulled back slightly, giving the Zalathi room to reform. On the bridge, Captain Chen turned to her weapons officer. Marcus, remember that thing we tested near Jupiter? The thing that made the Admiralty very nervous? Lieutenant Marcus Thompson grinned. The physics package? The one they said we should never use unless we absolutely had to? That's the one, prep it. Let's show our new friends what humans learned from splitting atoms. The Zalathi fleet had almost completed their boxing formation when the Defiant launched something new. It looked like a missile, but it moved too slowly. It tumbled through space toward the center of the Zalathi formation like a thrown stone. Destroy it, Krextor ordered. Dozens of point defense lasers targeted the object, but at the last second before impact it exploded. Not in a conventional explosion, but in something far worse. It was a nuclear-pumped X-ray laser. The nuclear explosion's energy was focused into dozens of high-powered X-ray beams that shot out in all directions. These beams ignored shields completely. They passed through them like they weren't there and struck hull metal directly. The results were devastating. 20 Zalathi ships were hit simultaneously. Their hulls were scored with deep burns, systems overloaded. Crews died from radiation exposure. The ships didn't explode. They simply stopped working, floating dead in space. The bridge of Krextor's flagship went silent. 20 ships disabled with a single weapon. A weapon that ignored their shields, their primary defense. A weapon they had no counter for. They're not using their most advanced technology, the science officer whispered in horror. They're using primitive nuclear weapons and kinetic projectiles because those are the things we didn't prepare for. Our shields are calibrated for energy weapons. Our armor is designed for plasma impacts. They're not fighting our war. They're fighting their war. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication channel again. This time she wasn't joking. The Predator's tone was stronger now. That was a warning shot. We have 40 more of those devices. We also have other toys we haven't shown you yet. You have 10 seconds to begin withdrawing or we stop playing nice. On Kepler Station, the refugees watched in stunned silence. They had been preparing for death, making peace with their ends. The Zalathi fleet's retreat was supposed to be orderly. They had practiced withdrawal maneuvers thousands of times in simulations. Ships would pull back in stages, covering each other, maintaining defensive formations. It was all very civilized and proper. The humans didn't let them. As the Zalathi ships began to turn and accelerate away, The Defiant surged forward like a wolf chasing fleeing sheep. Captain Chen stood on her bridge, watching the enemy flee with a satisfied smile. "They're running," Lieutenant Park observed. "Should we let them go?" "Let them go?" Chen laughed. "James, they came here to murder 50,000 civilians. They've been bombing that station for 2 weeks. No, we're not letting them go. We're going to teach the entire galaxy a lesson. You attack humans or those under human protection, you pay the price." She turned to her crew. "All hands, pursuit mode. Let's show them that running from humans is a bad idea." The Defiant's engines roared to full power. The blocky ship shot forward at an acceleration that made the Coalition observers on Kepler Station gasp. Nothing should be able to accelerate that fast. The G-forces involved were mind-breaking. Commander Vexara pulled up the human ship's specifications on her display, what little they had been able to scan. "That acceleration, it's pulling nearly 40 Gs. How are they alive?" Her science officer, an elderly Altarian named Teko, was running calculations. "Commander, I've been analyzing their broadcasts. The humans mentioned Earth is classified as a death world. If that's true, what's a death world?" Lieutenant Cora asked. "A planet so hostile that developing intelligence there is considered nearly impossible," Teko explained. "High gravity, extreme weather, aggressive predators, constant tectonic activity. Most species come from worlds rated Class 3 to Class 5 in terms of difficulty. A death world would be Class 10 or higher. And Earth?" Teko's 4 hands trembled slightly. "Based on what we're seeing, based on what these humans can endure, Earth might be Class 12, maybe higher." The evacuation of the Zalathi fleet was becoming a disaster. Ships crashed into each other trying to escape. The faster vessels abandoned the slower ones. Military discipline, built over centuries, crumbled in the face of pursuing death. The Defiant picked off the stragglers with almost casual efficiency. Its railguns punched through engine blocks. Its missiles found weak points with uncanny accuracy. But it was what Captain Chen did next that truly broke the Zalathi spirit. "Open a channel to their fleet," she ordered. "All frequencies." When the connection was established, Chen didn't threaten or rage. Instead, she started talking casually, like she was having a conversation over dinner. "You know, where we come from, we have these things called persistence predators. Humans are one of them. Do you know what that means? It means we don't kill our prey quickly. We chase it. We follow it. We wear it down. Our ancestors would chase animals for hours, even days. The prey would run and run until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then we'd catch up and finish it." She paused to let that sink in. "I'm telling you this so you understand. You can run. You can jump to FTL. You can flee to the other side of the galaxy, but we'll follow. We have your energy signatures, your drive frequencies, your home port locations. We know who you are. And humans, we never forget. We never forgive. And we never ever stop hunting." On his flagship, Admiral Krextor listened to the human captain's words and felt something he had never experienced before. Primal fear. This wasn't the calculated concern of military defeat. This was the deep instinctive terror of being prey. "She's insane," his second-in-command whispered. "They're all insane." "Admiral, we've lost another 12 ships," the tactical officer reported. "The human vessel is specifically targeting our command ships. They're decapitating our command structure." It was true. The Defiant wasn't just randomly destroying ships. It was hunting specific vessels, taking out admirals, captains, strategic coordinators. Without leadership, the Zalathi fleet's retreat turned into a complete rout. Back on Kepler Station, the 50,000 refugees watched in stunned silence. They had prepared for death. They had said their goodbyes, made their peace. Now they were watching their would-be executioners flee in terror from a single human ship. A small child, a Vossen with bright blue fur, tugged on her mother's arm. "Are the humans the bad ones?" she asked innocently. Her mother didn't know how to answer. The humans were saving them, yes. But the way they did it, the joy they seemed to take in the hunt, it was terrifying in its own way. Commander Vexara was having similar thoughts. She opened a private channel to the Defiant. "Captain Chen, the Zalathi are retreating. Perhaps you could allow them to leave?" "You've made your point." Chen's response was friendly but firm. "Commander, I appreciate your concern. But you need to understand something about humans. We're nice, we're helpful, we're great friends. But we're also the descendants of creatures that survived on a world where everything tried to kill everything else. We learned to be the scariest thing in any room. These Zalathi need to learn that attacking civilians has consequences. The galaxy needs to learn that humans protect their own. As if to emphasize her point, the Defiant launched another spread of nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers. The fleeing Zalathi ships tried to dodge, but at this range it was impossible. 20 more ships were crippled or destroyed. Admiral Krextor's flagship shuddered as a railgun round tore through its secondary hull. He looked at his remaining fleet, once 200 strong, now down to fewer than 80 ships capable of FTL jump. All ships, emergency jump. Any heading, just go. The surviving Zalathi vessels began spinning up their FTL drives. It would take 60 seconds to charge them fully. 60 seconds with the human demon ship still pursuing. Captain Chen watched the energy build up on her sensors. They're trying to jump. Marcus, what do you think? Should we let them? We could disable a few more, the weapons officer suggested. Their FTL drives are vulnerable during the charge cycle, Chen considered for a moment. No, let them run. But let's give them something to remember us by. Load the particle beam. Let's write our name on their hulls. The Defiant's main gun, which hadn't been used yet, began to charge. It was a particle beam weapon. Crude by galactic standards, but effective. Chen personally targeted each fleeing ship's hull, not to destroy but to mark. As the Zalathi ships jumped to FTL, each one bore new scars. Burned into their hulls in massive letters was a simple message. Humans were here. The last ship to jump was Admiral Krextor's flagship. As it disappeared into the twisted space of FTL travel, the Admiral looked back at the tactical display one final time. One ship. They had been defeated by one ship. The mighty Zalathi hegemony, which had conquered 40 systems, had been broken by a single vessel from an unknown species. With the Zalathi gone, the Defiant finally slowed its pursuit. The human ship turned and headed back toward Kepler Station, its engines cooling from the intense chase. Captain Chen opened a channel to the station. Commander Vexara, this is Captain Chen. The threat has been neutralized. Requesting permission to dock. We have medical supplies and food for the refugees, and my crew could use a chance to stretch their legs. Vexara found herself hesitating. These humans had saved them, but they were also possibly the most dangerous beings she had ever encountered. Captain, before you dock, I must ask. Your ship, your weapons, your tactics. They're nothing like anything we've seen. Who are you people? Chen's voice carried a hint of amusement. Who are we? We're humans, Commander. We're the new kids on the galactic block. We just got FTL travel 5 years ago. Found your distress signal by accident, actually. We were testing our long-range sensors. 5 years? You've only had FTL for 5 years? Yes, we're pretty new to this whole space thing. But we've been fighting each other for about 10,000 years, so we've gotten pretty good at war. Maybe too good. As the Defiant approached the station, Vexara could see details she had missed before. The ship's hull was covered in patches and welds, evidence of previous battles. But not battles with aliens. These were marks from human conflicts. You fought each other? Oh yeah, constantly. World wars, civil wars, corporate wars, resource wars. We pretty much fought over everything. Then we figured out how to leave Earth and decided maybe we should stop trying to kill each other and see what else was out there. That's when we found your galaxy. Our galaxy? Well, it's ours too now, I guess. But you folks have been here longer. We're trying to be good neighbors. That's why we came when we heard your distress signal. Humans have this thing about protecting people who can't protect themselves. It's probably because we spent so long hurting each other that now we try to do better. The Defiant docked with Kepler Station with surprising gentleness for such an aggressive vessel. The airlock sealed and the doors opened. Commander Vexara and a security team waited on the other side, not sure what to expect. Captain Sarah Chen stepped through first. She was smaller than Vexara had expected, with black hair tied back in a practical ponytail and warm brown eyes. She looked tired but satisfied. Behind her came her crew, humans of various shapes and colors, all looking equally exhausted but cheerful. Chen extended her hand to Vexara, then seemed to remember the commander had 4 arms and laughed. Sorry, I'm not sure about the protocol here. Handshake, all 4, just 2? The Coalition fleet dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. 40 ships, including 2 battleships, 10 cruisers, and an assortment of destroyers and support vessels. It was an impressive show of force, or would have been, if they hadn't arrived to find the battle already over. Admiral Threnix of the Coalition Navy stood on his bridge, staring at the tactical display in complete confusion. According to the data, there should be 200 Zalathi ships here. Instead, there was a debris field that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Broken ships, frozen bodies, and scattered wreckage filled the space around Kepler Station. "Scan for Zalathi vessels," he ordered. "None detected, Admiral, but I'm reading massive amounts of debris. At least 100 destroyed ships, possibly more. That's impossible." Kepler Station had no defense fleet. What could have done this? His sensor operator's voice was uncertain. "Admiral, I'm detecting one unknown vessel docked with the station. Configuration doesn't match any known design." Threnix studied the image on his screen. The ship was ugly by any standard. Blocky, angular, covered in what looked like crude armor plating and weapon systems. It was also surprisingly small, barely cruiser-sized. One ship destroyed a Zalathi siege fleet? Commander Vexara's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral Threnix, this is Commander Vexara. The siege has been broken. The station is secure. We have the human vessel UES Defiant to thank for our survival." Human. What's a human? A new species, Admiral. They arrived 3 hours ago and, well, you can see the results. I'm transmitting our sensor logs of the battle now. You need to see this for yourself. Admiral Threnix watched the recorded battle in stunned silence. His bridge crew gathered around, equally mesmerized. They watched a single ship dance through space, avoiding fire that should have been impossible to dodge. They watched it deploy weapons that ignored shields, tactics that defied logic, and demonstrate a level of aggression that was almost frightening. "By the void," someone whispered. "They're insane." "No," Threnix corrected. "There's something far more dangerous. They're insane and competent." On Kepler Station, Captain Chen was meeting with the Coalition Admiralty via hologram. The gathered military leaders of a dozen species stared at the small human woman who had accomplished the impossible. "Captain Chen," Admiral Threnix began carefully, "what you've done here is unprecedented. A single ship defeating a force of that size. It changes everything we thought we knew about space combat." "Happy to help," Chen replied casually. "Though I should mention we got lucky. The Zalathi were predictable. They fought like they were following a textbook. Made them easy to counter once we figured out their patterns." "Easy?" An admiral from the Vossen Republic leaned forward, his feathers ruffled with agitation. "You call destroying 200 ships easy?" "Well, easier than fighting other humans," Chen admitted. "Human warfare is chaotic, unpredictable. Everyone's trying something crazy to get an edge. These Zalathi fought like they were afraid to color outside the lines. No creativity, no adaptation, no improvisation." The admirals exchanged glances. The idea that this level of destruction was considered easy by human standards was deeply unsettling. "Captain," Admiral Threnix said, "we need to discuss the implications of this. The Zalathi hegemony has been the dominant military power in this sector for centuries. What you've done will cause massive political upheaval." "Good," Chen said firmly. "They were attacking civilians. They were going to murder 50,000 refugees. They needed to be stopped." "Yes, but the power vacuum this creates..." Chen held up her hand. "Admiral, with respect, that sounds like a politics problem. I'm a soldier. My job was to stop the bad guys from killing innocent people. I did that. What happens next is above my pay grade." Meanwhile, in the Defiance medical bay, human medics worked alongside coalition doctors to treat the wounded. The contrast in approaches was striking. Coalition medicine was precise, careful, methodical. Human medicine was aggressive, almost violent in its determination to save lives. Dr. Lisa Park was performing surgery on a critically injured Altarian. The coalition doctors watched in horrified fascination as she literally reached into the patient's chest cavity to manually pump their heart. "That's barbaric," one coalition doctor said, "but it's working," another observed. "The patient is stabilizing." "Human medicine evolved on a battlefield," Dr. Park explained while working. "We learned to save lives in the worst possible conditions. No fancy equipment, no sterile environments, just determination and whatever tools we had on hand. We call it trauma medicine. Keep them alive now, fix them properly later." Throughout the station, similar scenes played out. Human engineers worked with coalition technicians to repair damaged systems. The humans approached problems with a philosophy that shocked their counterparts. If it worked, it was good enough. They used improvised solutions, unconventional materials, and procedures that no proper engineer would ever consider. "You're using food preparation equipment to repair a life support system," a coalition engineer said, scandalized. The heating element has the right resistance, the human engineer, Chief Petty Officer Mike Rodriguez explained. It'll hold until you can get proper parts. We call it percussive maintenance where I come from. Percussive maintenance? Rodriguez grinned and hit the console with his fist. The life support system hummed to life. If it doesn't work, hit it. If it still doesn't work, hit it harder. If it breaks, it needed replacing anyway. Back in the command center, Captain Chen was fielding questions from increasingly curious coalition officers. They wanted to understand everything about humans, about Earth, about how a species could be so effective at warfare. Earth is a Class 12 death world, Chen explained. Everything there evolved to kill or avoid being killed. The plants are toxic, the animals are predators, even the weather tries to murder you. We have storms that can level cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, and don't get me started on Australia. What's Australia? Someone asked. A continent where everything is specifically designed to kill humans. Spiders the size of dinner plates, snakes that can kill with a single bite, and birds that can disembowel you with their feet. Oh, and the cute fuzzy animals are poisonous too. The coalition officers looked at each other with growing alarm. And you evolved there? Naturally? Yep. Natural selection was brutal on Earth. Only the strongest, smartest, and most adaptable survived. Humans aren't the strongest species on our planet, not even close. But we're the most creative. We learned to use tools, make weapons, and work together. We turned our weaknesses into strengths. Admiral Threnix was beginning to understand. So your entire species is essentially weaponized evolution. Pretty much. We're persistence predators who learned to throw rocks really hard and then figured out how to make better rocks. Give a human a problem and they'll find 17 ways to solve it, half of which involve explosions. A communication alert interrupted the discussion. It was a priority message from Coalition Intelligence. Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the sector. The surviving Zalathi ships have been spreading word of what happened here. They're calling it the massacre at Kepler. They're terrified, Admiral. Some Zalathi colonies are already discussing peace treaties they rejected years ago. Chen smiled slightly. Good. Fear is a powerful motivator for peace. Captain, Admiral Threnix said carefully, you've essentially traumatized an entire civilization. They traumatized plenty of others first, Chen replied without sympathy. Now they know how it feels to be the prey instead of the predator. Maybe they'll think twice before attacking civilians again. The discussion was interrupted by an alarm from the Defiant. Captain Chen's communicator buzzed. Captain, you need to see this. Lieutenant Park's voice was tense. We've got incoming. A lot of incoming. Chen excused herself and ran to the docking bay. Through the viewport, she could see new contacts appearing on the edge of the system. Not Zalathi ships, but something else. Many somethings. Back on the Defiance bridge, the crew was at battle stations. The tactical display showed over 300 ships dropping out of FTL. But these weren't military vessels. They were civilian ships from dozens of different species. Captain, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, the communications officer reported. They're requesting protection. Protection from what? Everything, apparently. Word has spread about what we did here. These are refugee ships from all over the sector. They heard humans protect civilians, and they're coming here hoping we'll protect them too. Chen stared at the display. 300 ships full of frightened civilians, all hoping that the humans would be their shields against the darkness. Well, she said quietly, I guess we started something. Admiral Threnix appeared on the communication screen. Captain Chen, this is unprecedented. These civilians are flocking to you like you're some kind of guardian deity. What are you going to do? Chen thought for a moment, then straightened her shoulders. We're going to protect them, Admiral. It's what humans do. We see people in trouble, we help. It's that simple. Captain, you're one ship. You can't protect everyone. Watch us, Chen said with quiet determination. And Admiral, you might want to send a message to Earth. Tell them we need more ships out here. A lot more ships. 3 days had passed since the battle. The space around Kepler Station had transformed into the largest gathering of ships the sector had ever seen. Over 500 vessels now orbited the station, all seeking the protection of one small human warship. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the station's main conference room, facing a crowd of alien dignitaries, military officers, and refugee leaders. They all wanted to know the same thing: what happened next. Captain Chen, a Vosan ambassador, began, her feathers shifting through nervous colors. The Galactic Council is in emergency session. Your actions have destabilized the entire power structure of known space. The Zalathi are recalling all their fleets. 3 other aggressive empires have announced they're suspending military operations. Everyone is afraid of humans, Chen nodded. Good. They should be afraid. Not of humans in general, but of what happens when they attack innocent people. Fear of consequences keeps predators in check. Admiral Threnix leaned forward. Captain, you must understand the situation. The coalition has maintained peace through careful balance and negotiation for centuries. Your approach is different. Our approach works, Chen said simply. How many worlds have the Zalathi conquered while you were negotiating? How many species have gone extinct while you were maintaining balance? Sometimes, Admiral, you need to stop talking and start punching. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The lights shifted to combat red. What's happening? Someone shouted. Lieutenant Park's voice came over Chen's communicator. Captain, we've got a problem. Massive FTL signature incoming. It's huge. Chen ran to the command center, the others following. On the main display, a ship was emerging from FTL. But calling it a ship was like calling Earth's sun a light bulb. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the Defiant. Its hull was black as space itself, covered in weapons that looked like they could crack moons. What is that? Commander Vexara whispered. Chen's expression had gone hard. That's a Zalathi dreadnought. Their ultimate weapon. They only have 3 in their entire empire. Admiral Threnix's scales went pale. They brought a planet killer here? For one human ship. Apparently we made quite an impression, Chen said. She activated her communicator. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. The Zalathi dreadnought completed its emergence from FTL. It hung in space like a metal mountain, dwarfing every other ship present. Then its communication systems activated. The face that appeared on screen wasn't Admiral Krextor. It was someone far worse, Supreme Commander Zekthon, leader of all Zalathi military forces. His scaled face was marked with scars from 100 battles. Human vessel, he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. I am Supreme Commander Zekthon. You have humiliated our forces and disrupted the order of the galaxy. This ends now. Surrender and I will allow the civilian vessels to leave. Refuse, and I will destroy every ship here, starting with the refugees you claim to protect. Chen stepped forward, her face calm. Counteroffer. You leave right now and I don't turn your fancy dreadnought into the galaxy's largest debris field. Zekthon's expression darkened. You dare threaten me? This dreadnought has enough firepower to crack a small moon. Your primitive vessel wouldn't last 30 seconds. Want to bet? Chen asked, and she was smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted prey. Captain, Admiral Threnix whispered urgently. That dreadnought has shields that could withstand a direct hit from a star's corona. Its weapons could vaporize your ship in a single salvo. You can't seriously be considering fighting it. Chen turned to him. Admiral, would you like to know a secret about humans? We've been David fighting Goliath our entire history. Small beating big is practically our species' motto. Besides, that dreadnought has a weakness. What weakness? It exists in the same universe we do, which means it follows the same laws of physics. And humans are very, very good at breaking physics over our knee. She turned back to the screen. Commander Zekthon, you have 10 seconds to begin powering down your weapons. After that, I stop being nice. Zekthon laughed. It was a harsh grating sound. You threaten me? You insignificant insect? I will enjoy watching you burn. He turned to his crew. All weapons target the human vessel. Prepare to fire, Chen sighed. I tried to warn you. She activated her communicator. Marcus, remember that thing we're absolutely not supposed to have? The thing that violates 3 different treaties Earth hasn't signed yet? The relativistic kill vehicle? Lieutenant Thompson's voice was eager. The one we definitely don't have in Cargo Bay 3. That's the one. Prep it. On the Dreadnought's bridge, Zekthon watched his tactical display with confidence. His weapons were charging. In 20 seconds, they would fire and the human annoyance would be erased from existence. Then his sensor operator spoke up, voice confused. Supreme Commander, the human ship is launching something. It's very small. And moving very slowly. Debris? Are they dumping garbage at us again? Unknown, sir. It appears to be a simple metal rod about 3 meters long. It's moving at only— wait, that can't be right. What? It's accelerating. Still accelerating. It's at 10% light speed. 20%, 30. Supreme Commander, it's not slowing down. Zekthon felt the first touch of fear. What are they doing? On the Defiant, Chen watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction. The relativistic kill vehicle was simple in concept. Take a tungsten rod, accelerate it to near light speed, and let Einstein's equations do the rest. At 90% the speed of light, that 3-meter rod would hit with the force of several nuclear weapons. Impact in 10 seconds, Park announced. 987, all shields to maximum. Zekton screamed. Evasive maneuvers. But it was too late. The dreadnought was too massive to dodge quickly, and its shields were designed for energy weapons, not kinetic impacts at relativistic speeds. The rod hit. The impact was visible from the station. A brilliant flash of light as the rod's kinetic energy converted to heat and radiation. The dreadnought's shields flared and died instantly. The rod punched through the hull like it was made of paper, traveled through the entire ship and exited the other side, still moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The dreadnought didn't explode. It simply broke. The impact had transferred so much energy that the ship's structural integrity failed. It cracked like an egg, venting atmosphere, crew, and equipment into space. On every ship watching, on the station, in the conference room, there was absolute silence. A 3-meter rod had just destroyed the most powerful warship in known space. Chen opened a channel to the dying dreadnought. "Commander Zekton, if you're still alive, this is Captain Chen. That was a warning shot. I have 12 more of those rods. The next one won't miss your reactor core. Order your crew to abandon ship. Now!" Escape pods began launching from the broken dreadnought, hundreds of them fleeing the dying ship. Within minutes, the greatest weapon in the Zalathi arsenal was nothing but a slowly tumbling hulk. Admiral Threnix found his voice.
How? How is that possible?
Equals MC squared, Chen said simply. Mass times velocity squared equals kinetic energy. Get something moving fast enough and it doesn't matter how small it is. It'll hit like the fist of an angry god. We call them relativistic kill vehicles. Humans developed them about 50 years ago, then immediately banned them because they were too dangerous. You banned them, but you have them, Chen shrugged. We banned using them on each other. Nobody said anything about using them on aliens who threatened civilians. The escape pods from the dreadnought were floating helplessly in space. By the laws of war, Chen should destroy them or capture them. Instead, she did something else. "Commander Zekton, this is Captain Chen. I'm going to let your escape pods leave. You're going to return to your empire and deliver a message for me." Zekton's voice came over the channel, weak and defeated. "What message?" "Tell them humanity has claimed this sector as a protectorate. Any ship from any empire that comes here with hostile intent will be destroyed. No exceptions, no negotiations, no mercy. But any ship that comes in peace, seeking trade or refuge or simple passage, will be welcome and protected. This is now human space, and human space is safe space. You can't claim an entire sector. It's impossible for one species to control that much territory." "Watch us," Chen said. "And, Commander, tell your empire that this was one ship. One old patrol ship with a crew of 150. Earth is sending 100 warships, each one more advanced than the Defiant. They'll be here within the year. If your empire wants to survive, I suggest you learn to play nice." The escape pods began limping away, heading for the edge of the system where they could signal for rescue. As they left, more ships began arriving. These weren't refugees, but representatives from governments across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to meet the humans, to understand them, to either ally with them or find their weaknesses. Over the next hours, Captain Chen found herself in meeting after meeting. The Vossen Republic wanted a defense treaty. The Altarian Collective wanted to trade technology. 3 different species wanted to hire human mercenaries. To all of them, Chen gave the same answer. "Earth will consider all proposals, but our primary mission is protection of innocent life.